it's good to be here because I was here at the very beginning of our journey together on the retreat, and the opportunity to now kind of bookend it by being together with you. Let's together as a class and those that are our guests tonight just listen in to the journey that we have been on. This journey has been intentionally following not just the life of Jesus, but actually believing that his leadership actually was something that Jesus, he modeled and that we are to emulate. So let's recall back, we'll have it up here on the screen, the various different parts of the journey that we've been along. The first time you remember we spoke about the foundation of Jesus' ministry. 30 years. Think about that. 30 years of quiet preparation. How Jesus goes through so many different aspects of preparing well. And that the final phase of preparation, if you recall, was going through a wilderness and going through such difficulty, and how often we as leaders, we prepare and we're not willing to put in 3 months of preparation. We want promotion. And how Jesus for 30 years quietly prepares, and how he only lives for 33 years, and that 90% of leadership development is in fact quiet preparation. And so we find that to be true as well. And that he went through a wilderness and he comes out the other side stronger than ever. And then we recall one of the very first things that he did was say, "Come, follow me." There was this sense of calling. And if you recall that we talked about 3 different types of calling. We talked about this one preliminary calling where it says, in so many words, "Come and see." He said that to the first 4 disciples. He says, "Come and see." And it was for those that were curious. Some of us perhaps in this room can recall those times in our life when we did not know Jesus. But there was a moment when we became curious, and Jesus was kind of whispering in our ear, "Come and see." But then after about 6 months of being curious and following Jesus, those 4 disciples as well as a bunch of others, Jesus turns to them and says, "Now come, follow me." And that was a sense of not the preliminary calling, but that was the primary calling. And so now the disciples started to follow him all the more. And then there was this secondary calling that happened about a year after they started following Jesus with all their heart. And there was this calling of, "Come work with me." There was this, well, what Jesus actually said was, "Come and I'll make you fishers of men." You're fishermen. I'm going to make you fishers of men. I am at work where you work. And there's this sense of in our calling that we do not think through that the main primary calling is, "Come, follow me." We're always worried about the secondary calling. "Come, work with me." Like, where am I going to work? What am I going to do? And Jesus always calls us back to the primary calling to say, "Just come, follow me, stay close to me." So that as I can direct you, even in your work, I can whisper to you and you can hear my whisper. Calling is one of the very first things he did. And then you can see Jesus knowing what it meant to just know the Father. He would spend so much time just simply modeling what it means to know the Father. And then after nearly those 30 years, he then shows those disciples exactly what it means to know the Father. And then we realized that in the training session, that was the first of all the preparation time, and now the training, those 3 years that we hear so many stories about. But that first story on relationships, if you recall, we talked about the woman at the well. We said in John chapter 4, we realized that he must go through Jerusalem. No, not through Jerusalem, but rather Samaria. He says, "I must go through." And we realized that there was this inner compulsion. And he took the disciples, instead of them going around Samaria, they went through Samaria and he sat at a well. And then there he sat at a well and talked to not just a Samaritan, but a Samaritan woman. And not just a Samaritan woman, but a Samaritan woman with a checkered past. Someone that came to them at noontime at the well. And we know that the women that were absolutely had a good reputation, they came at the cool of the day, at the beginning, at the end of the day. But the women that had a checkered past, they came at noon. And Jesus talked to her and ministered to her and gave her life. And we realize that in relationships, Jesus is just not interested in, hey, I want you to build a business just with people that look just like you, that think just like you. No, rather, Jesus was kind of setting them up for one day he would say, I want you to go into all the world. And I need to begin to model what that means now. Come work with me. We need to have a business. We need to have a church as well that looks more like other people than just you. Jesus was intentional about he must go through Samaria. And he does this 7 more times in those next 3 years. He intentionally developed relationships. And during those first 18 months of those 3-year period, only 2 miracles occurred during that period. He's not attracting them. Remember, we talked about he didn't attract them through miracles. He attracted them through relationships. Come, follow me. And remember that Jesus knew that the way that you attract people to your church, the way that you attract people to your business is the way that you end up retaining them. So you promise them big perks, big miracles. Guess what? Guess how you have to retain them? Through the big perks, the big miracles. Jesus knew that I can't perform miracles right away. I need to attract them through relationships. And that's how he retained them over time. And then we can see that he got into the worldview. Within a week after calling the 12, he then says to them, now, I want to give you a little sermon. It's on the Mount, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this is the way that I see things. And you as a business leader, you need to be clear with your people. This is how I see things. This is the way that Jesus, this is a Christian worldview that I have. And then you can see the next thing on generosity. Jesus, during that sermon, talks about if you lay treasures here, that's where your heart will be. You lay treasures in heaven, that's where your heart will be. He knew that the key thing to any business, any church, is the level of your generosity. And then we talked about compassion. This, of course, is then the period where Jesus does so many miracles, the last 18 months of that 3-year period. He does so many miracles. Why? Because now he's attracted people with the right purpose and motivation. He has trained them for over 1.5 years, and now he starts doing miracles, and they can handle the growth. How many businesses would love to just have miracle after miracle right away? They got so much growth going on, and they implode. Jesus' organization doesn't implode. It's still going today, largely because he decided, I'm going to wait to do the miracles, the big compassion type efforts later on. But of course, as he does compassion, we notice that now people are threatened. You start becoming successful in your church. You become successful in your business. And guess what happens? People start questioning you. The people who are in power start questioning you. And that's exactly what the Pharisees did with Jesus. They start peppering him with all sorts of different questions. Who do you think you are? You think you're this? Question after question. How do we handle the questioning of people who are threatened by us? Jesus graciously gave them the truth of how he felt about things. And then we can see that we focused in on humility. At year 3, moving into that last half of the year, he turns to Peter and says, you must learn what it means to die to yourself daily. Every leader in this room has what we call junk. You got junk in your life that's, another word, it's called sin. It's there. Hebrews talks about how it kind of comes up, it recurs itself. It frequently besets you. And the Bible says you need to address it on a daily basis. The humility of saying, in so many words, I commit this area of my life, Lord, to you daily. This is what Jesus was encouraging Peter to do. He's going to focus in on his stuff that's going on. And then we can see the next thing that I encourage. That same guy, 6 months later, is at a fire, and he turns to him, and he says, you got to learn what it means. Oh, didn't I? This girl says, Peter, I know you. No, I don't know Jesus. No. 3 times as you know, this courageous man denies. And of course, the Bible says that he wept bitterly as soon as he saw Jesus. The Bible says that Judas and Peter both denied Jesus that night. They both wept bitterly. One of them hung himself, the other one hung on. And the main reasons that Peter took his courage and kept his eyes on Jesus and what was going to happen within the next few days with the resurrection. The other one, Judas, just kept his eyes on himself and just got totally depressed. This is courageous leaders. Doesn't mean you're not afraid. You just absolutely put your focus on the person that will in fact give you courage. And now tonight, we're talking about a legacy. I'd like to read this poem to you. It says this: 20 years, centuries have come and gone. And today, Jesus is the central figure of the human race. All the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, all the kings that have ever reigned put together have not affected the life of mankind on earth as powerfully as has this one solitary life. Think about it. Isaiah 53 says that this guy named Jesus, the Bible says in Isaiah 53 that he was so insignificant as far as his physical appearance is concerned. He was born in an obscure location. He was born to an insignificant and very poor family. But why did he have such a profound effect on this world? Well, I believe that the answer was from his closest colleague, the one who knew him probably the best besides his mother, was the disciple named John. What is legacy? What is legacy? I would submit to you that the definition is impact that lasts. Impact that lasts. Let me ask you, leaders, you who have children at home, you who have employees at work, what's one word? Maybe it's those words that I just described to you. Maybe it's one of those. But what's one word if your children were to describe your legacy, the impact that you're having on them? What's the one word to describe? I literally want you to take 15 to 30 seconds, turn to the person next to you, and give them the one word that you would hope that your life would be known for as a legacy. Go ahead and turn to one another and give them one word to describe it. Off the top of your head, what's one word that comes to your mind? All right. This guy named John, he knew Jesus extremely well. He was a part of the first group of disciples. He was a business owner that had several homes, one in North Galilee and one in Jerusalem. He was part of that inner core, Peter, James, and John. He was the only one, John was, at the cross. If you recall, all the other guys had left, but he's there. And you remember what Jesus does? Shows he actually entrusts his mother to John, says, take care of my mom. You don't leave your mother with anyone else other than someone that you really believe in. John ends up writing a book all about Jesus called the Gospel of John. And he writes 3 short letters as well. And you know what? There's one word that this man who knew Jesus so well said, this is the impact it left on me. This is Jesus' legacy. If I was to describe it in one word, it's the one word called love. This is the word that John uses, who knows Jesus the best. And he says, if there's one word to describe Jesus, the legacy, the impact that lasts, it's love. And he says that there's 3 ways in which you can demonstrate love to your colleagues, ways that you can demonstrate love to your children. And that is, first of all, to live in community. I'm amazed at how many leaders just love Life Work Leadership. Why? Because it's a unique community. You're getting a chance to be with others. Life Work Leadership graduates, please live your life in community. Jesus modeled this. This is the way that he lived. He did not live as Lone Ranger. He lived in community. The next thing that he did is that he gave confidence to people. He was always giving confidence. Do you remember that Peter I talked about that was at the fire? He denies Jesus 3 times. What did he do after? Within 30 days later, Peter is out fishing, and 100 yards away, the Bible says, literally 100 yards away, he sees somebody on the shore, and it's Jesus. And you're right. Peter quickly gets out of the boat and runs to Jesus through the water. And he comes up, and it's a fire again. It's another fire. And Jesus asked him a very logical question. Peter, do you love me? And he doesn't ask it once, not twice, but you're right, 3 times. And when Peter says, oh, Jesus, I love you, and Jesus finally says, then go, feed my sheep. Do you believe that that guy that had been so discouraged gained the confidence? Ladies and gentlemen, leaders, your children, your colleagues, do they mess up? Absolutely. Do they need to be instructed? Absolutely. But do they need to be renewed in their confidence? Yes. What you do is you take them back to that place of discouragement and you address clearly and lovingly, and you ask in so many words, do you still love Jesus? If so, then go. You're forgiven. Let's move forward. This is what he did. He gave confidence. And then finally, I think it's really clear, and that is he gave clear direction. Marcus Buckingham, the great author, says the greatest thing that leaders give is clarity. And I believe that that is one of the greatest things that you give is clear directions. And you know what Jesus' clear direction was to his business leaders? All 12 of those business leaders? Go make disciples. That's the main clarity that he gave. He said, teach others what I have taught you. Life work leadership, graduates, let me clearly tell you this. Go teach others what you have been taught this year. Whatever the aha was, whatever the big idea was, go teach it to others. Teach it to your children. Teach it to your colleagues. Go teach it to others. And then he says to them, and go into all the world. Your mission may be local, but your vision should always be global. Well, we hope that the impact of Jesus will last on you. You know, our labor of love over the last few years at LifeWork Leadership on the global side has been to be able to create some tools to help you to teach others what we have taught you. And I want to show you a couple of ideas here on the screen, 4 different tools that we have. You'll notice that one of them is the LifeWork groups. We actually now have small group material where you can take some of this material and actually bring it into your church environment, bring it into your business, wherever you are doing a small group, take tools with you. We also have our global community, which we call Legacy Program. Quarterly, we're going to be getting together with people from around the world that have gone through LifeWork, and we're going to learn from one another and be able to invest in the kingdom going forward. It's an opportunity for us to learn from one another and to invest in one another in the kingdom that's going forward. It's called Legacy Program, and it's all a part of a global community. And then I want to encourage you that this very LifeWork class, one of the greatest things that you can do for us right now is to replace yourself with someone else. The new class gets started in February. Replace yourself. And then finally, I'm going to Cape Town shortly, tomorrow. And then on Friday, we're going to be starting our executive program. And it is just this condensed version of what you have experienced. I want to encourage you that if you know of another city here in South Africa where the people really need a LifeWork program, maybe it's somewhere else around the world, let us know. We would love to be a part of that. All 4 of these tools are found in the website right there on the bottom, lifeworkglobal.org. Write that down, remember it. We'll send it to you in an email if you don't want to write it down for now. But those 4 tools, I want to encourage you to explore them. They're right on the opening page of lifeworkglobal.org. Then finally, since I am LifeWork's global ambassador, I have to close by telling you about some exciting things that are going on around the world. You'll notice this list of cities that we have up on the screen here. You'll notice that the ones in white are the ones that we presently are. And it's really exciting to just see the different things that have gone on in those cities. However, you'll notice that there's a lot more that are going on right now. And you'll notice that we're going to be launching in the next 12 months in these other cities. And so I'm so excited about what's going on in Europe right now. It's amazing the doors that God's opening up. And I believe He's going to be opening up some more doors here in South Africa as well. So, LifeWork Leadership, thank you so much. This is a dream come true. for me to be able to see the growth that's occurring, to see the transformed leaders are in fact transforming their businesses, transforming their city. Let me ask you to go teach others what has been taught to you. Thank you so much. Via Dunky.